general does.
Readers on this Thursday. Let's say hello to Bill Everhart and Jack Gibbs. Good morning and welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you,
Good morning,
Paul.
Paul. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning to you too, Bill.
Thank you. Good morning.
And to Sybil and everybody else who's here. And your good people out in the Midlands. Here in Omaha, it's colder. It's not 0. I think maybe it's 10 at our house or something like that. So it's got a ways to go up to get warmer, I guess. But sit back, relax, get something maybe on your around your shoulders or something, so you aren't chilly at all. And a cup of hot tea, coffee, whatever, or maybe a cold orange drink. Anyway, relax and listen to what we have to say through the newspaper and through the computer. That Bill has a computer, and I have the World Herald. First story comes from Iraq. Forces fighting the Islamic State should be able to retake the cities of Mosul in Iraq and Raqqa in Syria within the next 6 months, according to the top U.S. commander in Iraq. On a tour north of Baghdad Wednesday, Army Lieutenant General Stephen Townsend said, "Within the next 6 months, I think we'll see both conclude campaigns. Iraqi and coalition officials have warned that the extremist group is still expected to pose a security threat in Iraq and beyond, even after it is defeated territorially." Townsend said he hopes the U.S. forces can remain inside Iraq even after the Islamic State is territorially defeated, unlike the withdrawal of forces that occurred in the year 2011. ISIL morphing into an insurgent threat. That's the future, Townsend said, using an alternative acronym for the group. On a helicopter ride back to his Baghdad base yesterday afternoon, he pointed to streets in Iraqi capital below where he fought the predecessor to the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, in Iraq, and the landmarks targeted by the group with insurgent bombings. When asked if he thought Iraqi forces would be capable of fighting the Islamic State if it returns to its insurgent roots, he replied, "I don't know." Well, he would have to refocus training in those areas. Thompson also said that he expected the fight for Mosul's western half to begin soon. Iraqi forces have retaken about half of Mosul, the country's second largest city, since the operation was officially launched back in October, following more than 2 years of coalition-led anti-Islamic State operations around Iraq, clearing supply lines and partially isolating the city. Last month, the Iraqi forces declared Mosul's east fully liberated and have since largely paused the fight. Townsend, who heads a U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State, said Iraqis military is still in the process of putting forces into place ahead of the push into western Mosul, but predicted that operations would begin in the next few days. Closely backed by U.S.-led coalition air power, Iraqi ground forces face months of grueling urban combat in Mosul that at times brought the front lines to a standstill for weeks. Got a proverbial frog in my throat. Continuing on in the article, but the pace of operations increased as Iraqi forces closed on the Tigris River, which roughly divides the city. Yeah, the river, Tigris and the Euphrates. I remember studying those in my Latin class.
Yeah.
How about that? But the pace of operations increased in Iraqi forces as Iraqi forces closed on the Tigris River, which roughly divides the city. Townsend credited the quicker progress with better coordination and lessons learned on the part of Iraqi forces. But on the ground inside Mosul, Iraqi troops said as they neared the Tigris that Islamic State fighters launched fewer car bombs and largely fled from their advances, unlike the heavy resistance they faced in the first few weeks of combat. Someone said he expected that the fight for the western Mosul would pose a particular challenge for Iraqi forces due to the older neighborhoods and narrower streets. It'd be a difficult fight, more constricted, he said. At times during the Mosul fight, Iraqi forces experienced relatively high casualty rates among some of their most elite and well-trained fighters. Iraqi medics inside Mosul said during some of the heaviest fighting that Iraq's special forces were suffering around 20 casualties, both deaths and serious injuries each day. Townsend said these high attrition rates were a concern, but he didn't believe they would hamper the forces moving forward. In Raqqa, significant ground military operations against the Islamic State have barely begun. The coalition has been targeting the militants in the area for more than 2 years. U.S.-backed Kurdish-led fighters have been on the offensive in nearby areas, retaking just a cluster of surrounding villages over the past few months. On Saturday, the fighters, known as the Syria Democratic Forces, announced the launch of what's called the third phase of the Raqqa operation, which aims at isolating the city from the rest of the Islamic State-held territories. The announcement came a day after aircraft from the U.S.-led coalition destroyed 2 bridges on the southern edge of Raqqa. Bill?
Thank you, Jack. From the Lincoln Journal-Star, Warren in middle of Senate rancor from Washington. The turbulent national debate over race, gender, and free speech consumed the normally staid Senate on Wednesday after the GOP majority voted to silence Senator Elizabeth Warren, abruptly elevating her celebrity status at a moment when liberals are hungry for a leader to take on Donald Trump. The highly unusual rebuke of the Massachusetts Democrat came as the Senate weighed President Trump's nominee for Attorney General, GOP Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama, who received nearly a party line 52-47 confirmation Wednesday evening. It also gave frustrated Democrats a rallying cry weeks into a presidency that is dividing the country like few before. I certainly hope that this anti-free speech attitude is not traveling down Pennsylvania Avenue to our great chamber, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York warned darkly, as Democrats jumped at an opening to link the GOP's conduct to that of Trump himself. This is not what America is about, silencing speech, especially in this chamber. Republicans argued they were just trying to enforce necessary rules of decorum in a Senate that is a last bulwark of civil debate in an angry nation. But the debate immediately took on overtones of race and gender. Warren was rebuked as she was reading a letter by Martin Luther King Jr.'s widow, Coretta Scott King, opposing Sessions' ultimately unsuccessful nomination to a federal judgeship in 1986. Subsequently, several male Democratic senators stood up and read from the same letter, but without drawing objections, leading Democratic activists to proclaim that Senate Republicans were interested only in silencing a woman. The moment inspired a Twitter hashtag #LetLizSpeak, and clips from C-SPAN 2 went viral. By silencing Elizabeth Warren, the GOP gave women around the world a rallying cry, fellow Democratic Senator Kamala Harris of California said on Twitter. Warren was chastised under a little-used Senate regulation, Rule 19, which bars any senator from impugning the motives of any other or imputing any conduct or motive unworthy of becoming of a senator. The Senate's historian office could not immediately say when the rule was last invoked, but Democrats accused Republicans of selectively enforcing it. They noted the GOP did not apply it, for example, when Senator Ted Cruz of Texas accused Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of lying in relation to a dispute over the Export-Import Bank 2 years ago. This time, Warren drew a warning from the presiding officer as she quoted Tuesday evening from a letter written by the late Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts that referred to Sessions as a disgrace. She continued with her speech and began quoting from Coretta Scott King's letter and an accompanying statement that accused Sessions, a federal prosecutor at the time, of using the power of his office to chill the free exercise of vote by Black citizens. McConnell stood and invoked Rule 19, saying that Warren had impugned the motives and conduct of our colleague from Alabama, and quoting the words from Mrs. King. Warren, meanwhile, seen as a possible presidential candidate in 2020, along with a handful of other Senate colleagues, was given an even bigger platform to assail Sessions, the GOP, and Trump. By mid-afternoon Wednesday, she had raised more than $286,000 for her re-election campaign from more than 10,500 Move On members alone, the Liberals group said. This is about Coretta Scott King's letter, and that is all this is about, Warren said after finishing more than an hour's worth of TV interviews in the ornate rotunda of the Senate office building. And Mitch McConnell didn't want me to read that letter. He stopped me, and so I went out and read the letter anyway and posted it on a live feed. Democrats challenged McConnell's ruling, but the GOP majority voted to uphold it, barring Warren from speaking on the floor throughout the remainder of the debate over Sessions. Here's Jack.
Very good. From Berkeley, California comes this news. University of California, Berkeley police took a hands-off approach to protesters on the campus last week when violent rioters caused chaos when they overtook a largely peaceful protest against a right-wing speaker. But that response by campus officers is being questioned amid widening political polarization and increasingly hostile demonstrators. Last week, protests featured what's called black bloc tactics employed by mask-wearing protesters dressed head to foot in dark clothing and using crude weapons to vandalize property. While officers largely stood to the side, about 150 people labeled agitators by Berkeley police used metal rods, Molotov cocktails, and commercial-grade fireworks to overwhelm police and smash bank, branch, and storefront windows in downtown Berkeley. They also lit raging fires in a rampage that caused more than $100,000 in damage while protesting the scheduled appearance of right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos on February 1st, whose event was canceled while he was evacuated from campus in a bulletproof jacket. Only one person was arrested in the mayhem that injured 6 people, prompting criticism of training for campus police in the entire University of California system, which emphasizes officer restraint and patience during protests in the name of protecting students' free speech rights. The UC hands-off approach was to the citizens' detriment and the officers' detriment in this situation, said John Beckett, who's a lawyer for the union representing about 400 of the police officers. Officers should have been given more discretion to prevent the vandalism and the violence and make arrests of the Berkeley protests. The frustrating thing for the police officers is that they weren't allowed to do their jobs. Berkeley Police Sergeant Sabrina Reich defended the response, saying officers feared increased violence and more serious injuries if the violence escalated amid heavy-handed police response. Investigators are reviewing extensive video taken during the protests, and more arrests are possible. Several officers did fire paint like guns to mark rioters for detention and their possible arrests. But if officers had made more arrests at the scene, up to 3 officers would have had to give up crowd control duty to escort each suspected rioter to jail. It was a crowd control situation. We steered clear of individual victim right, the police officer said. Berkeley campus police had never encountered black bloc tactics before the protests, adding that it's something we'll have to prepare for and address going forward. Campus security and free speech rights experts said it is difficult for officers to keep peace at protests while ensuring that free speech is guaranteed. University of California system adopted its crowd control policies after officers at Berkeley and the University of California, Davis came under blistering national criticism in the year 2011 for their tactics. That November, baton-wielding Berkeley police beat students erecting tents on campus and arrested more than 20 during the Occupy protests, during corruption, greed, and economic disparities. Davis campus police were seen using pepper spray on students non-violently participating in the Occupy rallies, which was the name of the group. The University of California responded with a report recommending 49 police tactic changes, which were later adopted throughout the university system, and urged campus officers to protect students' peaceful protest rights. Berkeley campus police may soon face another test because one of the leaders plans to return to give the speech. He said he was prevented from delivering. Bill.
10:15 is the time. Thank you, Jack. Preserving botany one sheet at a time. Smithsonian digitizing entire collection of 5 million specimens. Rochelle Sappho has spent so long at the digitization belt, she hears it in her dreams. The click of the camera, the beep of the computer, the whir of the belt as it conveys the next specimen beneath the camera's lens. Click, beep, whir. Click, beep, whir. The sounds fill the windowless room deep in the bowels of the National Museum of Natural History, where she works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, every week for the past 16 months. Sappho has helped operate a huge conveyor belt designed to digitize the museum's vast botany collection. Deftly, she and her 2 fellow digitizers place papers bearing pressed plants on the belt, pass them under a camera, snap a photo, check the image on the computer, and replace the sheets in their folder. Click, beep, whir. It is definitely not what I had imagined, admitted the 24-year-old Sappho. She had gone to Georgetown to get a master's degree in museum studies with the hope of becoming a curator. But when she graduated and started looking for jobs at the Smithsonian, this was what was available. The seemingly monotonous task turned out to be essential. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than you think, Sappho said. The fact that we all manage to stay sane is really what the museum makes the museum run. The NMNH Botany Collection, or herbarium, is among the largest in the world, filling more than 2 floors of the museum with massive palm fronds, tiny slides containing microscopic algae, coconuts heavier than a human toddler, pressed plants older than the United States, dated with some of the famous names in the history of science and exploration: Charles Darwin, Captain James Cook, President Theodore Roosevelt. All told, there are more than 5 million specimens spanning for the past 3 centuries of plant life on Earth. Some 3.5 million of those objects are press sheets, dried and preserved plants mounted on stiff white paper and meticulously labeled with information about when and where they were found. It is a record of what existed, says Department of Botany Chief Lawrence J. Dorr, and since 20,000 to 30,000 new specimens are added each year, it will stand as a record of what exists today. But for the years, the record was locked away in cabinets, difficult to search and impossible to analyze on large scale, and at the plodding rate of traditional digitization, in which press sheets are scanned and identifying information is entered into a database by hand, any effort to turn the physical archive into a digital one seemed Sisyphean. New objects were added to the collection so rapidly the museum couldn't keep up. It took 40 years to catalog the first 1.5 million items in the herbarium. Then the digitization program office got involved. Next month, the botany staff will notch their next 1 million digitized objects. It took less than 1.5 years. Here's Jack.
Very good. Here's some news about Afghanistan, whether or not we as a country are going to continue to be there in the long term. When Taliban commander Mullah Akhtar Mohammed wants to purchase cheap weapons and fuel, he goes to see the Afghan army. Armed representatives from both sides sometimes meet twice a month, said Mohammed, age 45, who has battled U.S. and Afghan forces since the year 2001. It's simple and cheaper, he said in a phone interview from an undisclosed location. Mohammed is living witness to a recent priority by the U.S. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan, which found that a high percentage of fuel and ammunition stolen by Afghan forces ended up in the hands of their ostensible enemies. As the Taliban and Islamic State ramp up their insurgencies against the Afghan government, revelations of corruption and double dealing have put into doubt the effectiveness of some $69 billion that our country has spent training Afghanistan's army. Calls are mounting for the president to review the war in Afghanistan. While it's unlikely that Trump would order a complete withdrawal, the draft provides an excellent excuse for the administration to justify reducing aid, said Timur Sharon, International Crisis Group's senior analyst. So far, however, Afghanistan, America's longest military fight, is getting little attention from the Trump administration. The conflict, now in its 16th year, got only a peripheral mention during Trump's visit Monday to U.S. Central Command, which oversees the conflicts in the Middle East. And there's little discussion of a revamped policy to beef up the Afghan security forces as they work to make their country secure. America, the president said in Tampa, Florida, expresses its gratitude to everyone serving overseas, including our military personnel in Afghanistan. That was it for a conflict that includes about 8,400 U.S. troops conducting counterterrorism operations against insurgents and training and advising Afghanistan's military. The contrast with the U.S. effort to defeat the Islamic states in Iraq and Syria has been striking. While Trump has given the Pentagon 30 days to come up with a new plan to defeat the self-described caliphate, there has been no similar order for Afghanistan. It's unclear if the White House simply wants to maintain Obama administration policies to bolster Afghan forces and keep some U.S. troops in the country for counter-terror missions. General John Nicholson, who is the top U.S. commander in Afghanistan, is expected to update Congress on the war today.
Thank you, Jack.
1022, I see there, Bill.
Yeah. Let's see, 1022. I guess we should be moving.
Yeah, we went right on by the.
Oh, goodness.
20.
I've got to back off here a little bit. I'll just read a quick one here. RFK's son to run for governor in Illinois from Chicago. Chicago businessman Chris Kennedy will join the Democratic race for Illinois governor, campaign aides to the son of the late Robert F. Kennedy said. Today, I am announcing my run for governor because I love Illinois, Kennedy said in a statement, but we have never been in worse shape. We don't need incremental improvement. We need fundamental changes in state government. Kennedy said it was time for Illinois to again embrace the American dream, the notion that we are a country and a state where anyone can make it and where unlimited opportunity is the promise of our country. 1023, and I guess we'll be moving on to local and legislative.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to find the first. I found the second page, but I can't find the first page. Well, it's something to do with Creighton's committee. I don't know where. It says go to page 1. I go to page 1 and it has pictures of snow. Well, what I'm going to do something else then. There's some news. What is it? Local news. Okay, committee gets earful on Ricketts tax plans is what the headline reads. It wasn't hard to tell their supporters from the opponents at a Wednesday public hearing on Governor Ricketts' proposal to cut Nebraska's top income tax rate. LB 337 drew enthusiastic support from business interests and free market advocates, arguing that the cuts would help the state grow. Opponents include groups saying property taxes should take priority or raising concerns about the tax plan's impact on schools and other state services. But the lines were blurred on the governor's other tax initiatives this year, a separate bill to change how Nebraska values ranch and farmland for property tax purposes. Well, they're speaking as proponents or opponents. People testifying on the bill said it would take a step in the right direction, but not do enough for farmers and ranchers. The Revenue Committee heard both bills yesterday at a hearing that filled all available seats and lasted more than 7 hours. Wow. Even so, many opponents of the income tax bill left unhappy after Senator Smith of Papillion cut off testimony before they could speak. Smith is the committee chairman. Senator Burke Harr of Omaha complained that even without counting unlimited time given to Ricketts and the tax commissioner, Tony Fulton, backers of the proposal got more time to speak. LB 337 would cut Nebraska's top individual income tax rate from just under 7% to 6% in 8 steps. The bill would use a trigger mechanism to phase in the cuts. Projections of state revenue grow exceeding 3.5% would trigger each step. The first step would occur in the year 2020, depending on growth and in-state tax revenues. Ricketts and Fulton acknowledged that, as shown by a World Health analysis, cuts could be triggered when actual revenues fall short of the projections. They said the reverse could happen as well, that projections would not trigger a cut while actual revenues turn out to meet the level. Projections tend not to be precise in hindsight, Fulton said, but Senator Mike Green of North Platte wondered whether a different type of trigger might be better. I would like to see tax cuts, but I want it done right, he said. Senator Paul Shoemaker of Columbus asked whether the potential tax savings would be enough to encourage economic growth in the state. He calculated that a small business netting $300,000 in income could save about $2,550 with the plan, which he said was not enough to create a new job. But Fulton said passing the tax cut plan would send a message to business, and as would lawmakers doing nothing about the top tax rate. Brian Goebbels, who is on the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce Small Business Council, said the savings might be small, but lower or tax rates would help attract people to the state. This is a long-term game, he said. On the other side, Mark Filson of the group Reform for the Nebraska Future said Nebraskans want meaningful property tax relief before looking at income taxes. Other opponents said LB 337 would direct the biggest benefits to the wealthiest Nebraskans while making it more difficult for the state to adequately fund government services. State revenue officials estimate that this plan would reduce state income tax revenues by some $288 million per year when fully implemented. State officials estimate that it would shave off 2% off the statewide ag land evaluations if it were applied this year. The bill would also impose a 3.5% annual cap on statewide agricultural land valuation increases. Both proponents and opponents generally said they liked the concept behind the bill, but they also said it would not address the property tax burdens on farmers and ranchers, which some called a crisis. We need tax relief now, said Mary Lou Block, who's a cow-calf operator from Custer County. This is a start or a part of the total solution, said Al Junkie of the Nebraska Pork Producers Association. We need reform for the long-term relief and in the short term. Ricketts suggested that lawmakers could combine his agricultural land plan with other ideas. Senators and testifiers alike raised numerous questions about the complex process for calculating the new valuations. LB 338 leaves many details to be worked out by the State Property Tax Administrator. It looks like we found something more complicated than the state school 8 formula, Schumacher said.
From the Lincoln Journal-Star, beer and coffee on tap for downtown bike shop. Liquor Commission okays license for new business concept. A combination bike shop, coffee shop, and bar concept will take off in downtown Lincoln later this month after state liquor regulators approved a license for Method Cycles and Craft House Wednesday. Randy Kinney, new owner of the business at 11th and L Streets, told the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission alcohol sales will be a complementary component of the business's aim to offer customers high-quality products. We want to sell very nice coffee, Kenny said. We want to sell interesting craft beers, and we want to sell very nice bicycles. Kenny envisions offering a beer or a cup of coffee to a customer after a bike purchase, or hosting biking enthusiasts after a race or cycling event in town. The concept, Kenny said in an interview, is unique to the area, though similar businesses have taken off in Denver and Minneapolis. Wednesday's hearing followed a previous attempt by the business to secure the right to sell liquor. The commission denied the liquor license request of the previous owner, Drive Method LLC, in January of 2016, after concerns the owner hadn't reported numerous traffic violations. City and state officials noted none of those offenses, involved drugs or liquor, but cited concerns the owner's checkered driving record might indicate an inability to follow state liquor laws. Commissioners on Wednesday praised Kinney as an excellent applicant after asking about his ties to the previous owners. Kinney and his attorney, Bob Krieger, said the previous owner has a business relationship with the shop, but will not be involved in the day-to-day operation of the liquor license. The front of the shop will operate as a coffee bar in the morning and sell alcohol in the afternoon and evening. Method Cycles plans to begin alcohol sales on February 27th, Kinney said. Here's Jack.
Very good. There's some snow news. Wednesday's rush hour snow is already melting, but there's still a 90% chance of a campaign blizzard in the forecast. Omaha Mayor Gene Southard, who faced criticism over the city's response to a rush hour snowstorm last year, said Wednesday that the city had dispatched just 110 trucks to plow major streets along with another 190 contractor trucks in neighborhoods. But former state senator Heath Mello, her opponent in the May 9th election, was quick to criticize Southard as snow snarled the morning commute and frustrated Omaha drivers. Nearly 3 inches fell. In a press release, Mello criticized the mayor for being out of town as public works employees cleared the snow. He also said the response to the snowfall was inadequate. I received calls and messages this morning from residents who are frustrated by the slick and dangerous conditions across the city, he said. Wednesday in the press release, the mayor promised to send snowplows out, but it must be difficult to dispatch snowplows from an undisclosed location. He referenced the January 19th, 2016 rush hour storm that temporarily closed West Dodge near 90th and led to an intense criticism of the city. Southard was in California with her husband Wednesday for a birthday trip, but said by phone that she was monitoring the situation. The mayor does not personally dispatch public works vehicles. Mr. Mello has got to understand technology like cell phones and computers, she said. It doesn't matter if I'm sitting up in my office at City Hall or I'm out of town for a couple of days. I remain in constant contact. Snowplowing and other basic city services such as filling potholes are often key to mayoral campaigns. They're one of the ways that Omahans live directly come into contact with the government. Last year, in the wake of January storm, the city surveyed residents on their expectations for snow removal. After getting those results, the mayors and the Public Works Department revamped the city's snow plan. Now, contractors begin plowing neighborhood streets earlier during storms, and the city begins pre-treating streets up to 3 days before the snow begins to fall. The city also hired 16 new public work employees, in part to plow snow, and bought 14 new plows to replace the old ones. But even with the additional resources, both the mayor and public works officials said snow during rush hour is the most difficult to clear. Assistant Public Works Director Todd Feitzer noticed that snowplows can move only as fast as the cars on the street. A rush hour storm is our worst nightmare, he said. But Feitzer said long commutes had nothing to do with Southard's presence or lack of that. We've been plowing snow in the city for 100 years, whether the mayor's out of town or not, he said. Wednesday's drivers reported that commutes that normally take 15 to 30 minutes stretched past 2 hours. But they offered mixed opinions about whose fault it was. Some, like the Nebraska Medical Center communications specialist Signe Hochstein, said delays are normal during a rush hour snow. I don't think anyone is to blame, he said, who left from Lincoln at 6:45 in the morning on yesterday. It's just the circumstances and the timing of the snow. It came right as everyone was going to work. Others, such as Chris Nelson, who spent 2.5 hours commuting Wednesday morning, pointed the finger in part at City Hall. This is the second time this has happened, he said. Both times I Street was cleared, but there weren't even any accidents that slowed up traffic. This was drivers being overly cautious and the road crews not clearing this main artery through the city. Having an all-wheel drive vehicle made no difference at all. What do they expect?
Thank you, Jack. From the Journal Star, trade report is disputed. Economists say report minimizes trade war's impact on Nebraska. A report released this week indicates Nebraska would be less affected by a trade war with Mexico than many other Midwestern states, but two of the state's top economists don't agree. President Donald Trump has said he plans to renegotiate terms of the North American Free Trade Agreement between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. He also has floated the idea of a 20% tax on Mexican imports to help pay for his proposed wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. Experts have said either one or both of these proposals could lead to a trade war with Mexico, which is the U.S.'s third largest trading partner. The report from personal finance website Wallet Hub ranked Nebraska 22nd, barely in the top half of the states that might be affected by trade issues between the U.S. and Mexico. Among the states ranking higher than Nebraska were Missouri 8th, Iowa 10th, Illinois 13th, Kansas 8th, and South Dakota 19th. Wallet Hub said it looked at 5 factors to come up with rankings: exports to Mexico as a share of total state exports, exports to Mexico as a share of the state GDP, imports from Mexico as a share of total state imports, and imports from Mexico as a share of state GDP, and share of jobs supported by trade with Mexico. Creighton University economist Ernie Goss said he did not agree with the rankings, noting that nearly 20% of Nebraska's exports go to Mexico, considerably more than Kansas, Iowa, or Illinois. University of Nebraska-Lincoln economist Eric Thompson, who heads up the Bureau of Business Research, said the fact that the report does not consider the potential effects on the transportation industry means it may be underestimating the impact on Nebraska. Any regulatory changes limiting trade with Mexico or any other country will reduce economic growth in at least 2 ways: increasing the price and lowering the quality of goods available to purchase in the U.S., and reducing the productivity and competitiveness of American industry by disrupting global supply chains. A third possible impact would be reduced overseas demand for exports if countries retaliate against the U.S. trade regulations with regulations of their own. To see the full Wallet Hub report, go to http://wallethub.com/edu. Here's Jack.
10:38 it is.
I think maybe.
I think we should probably start the obituaries.
Good idea, Jack. You got a
Bill and I, we do this every week. One of the things we have to kind of manage is make sure we get all the obituaries said and make sure we had enough time. So if there's a lot of obituaries on a particular Thursday, which is almost every Thursday, we shut up a little bit earlier. In this case, 10:38. So I got, where's my page 1? You want to start? I'm trying to find page 1.
Yes,
no, I found it.
Here it is.
Okay. Okay, here's the obituaries from the Omaha World Herald. Anderson, Gloria Jane Anderson, age 83, of Malvern, Iowa. The Peterson Mortuary in Glenwood is handling the funeral arrangements. Memorials may be made to the Salvation Army or to the Wounded Warriors organization. Anderson, John W., known as Jack Anderson, born in 1929, would make him about, let's see if I'm 84 plus 3 is 87. I think it's 87. The Carisco Larkin Saskevich Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the First Presbyterian Church. Bohack, James R. Bohack of Omaha. And the donations can be made in his name to the American Cancer Society in New Orleans, Louisiana. To view or sign the online guest book, visit Moholson, which is the name of the mortuary, I think. That's a guess on my, I think that's what it is. It's moholson.com, spelled Muhielsen. I think I don't know where this. I'm stumbling as Moholson, I believe is, yeah, here it is down here. Moholson and Son Funeral Home, located in New Orleans. Moving on to the next obituary. Broderick, Shane C.J. Broderick, age 22. Memorials can be made to the scholarship fund called the Egelhoff, Seigert, and Casper. No, I'm sorry, that's the name of the mortuary. The name of the mortuary is the Egelhoff, spelled Egelhof, Egelhoff, Seigert, and Casper Westview Funeral Home, is in charge of arrangements. It doesn't say where it's located, but he is from Dubuque, Iowa, so I'm kind of guessing maybe that's where it's located. And yeah, he's 22. Okay. Next obituary, Burke, Timothy J., known as Tim Burke, age 37. Ephraim Hoffman Mortuary is in charge at their Bel Air Chapel. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to touchthenations.com or to the freshstartomaha.org. Next obituary, Carney with a C, C-A-R-N-E-Y, Elaine C. Carney, age 80. The Forest Lawn Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials are suggested to the American Cancer Society or the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And then we come to the next page. We have pages of obituaries. Carter, Victor S. Carter, age 85. Johnny Gentleman is handling the arrangements. And memorials can be made to charity of your choice. Conger, which is C-O-N-G-E-R. Coletta Marie, her maiden name was Kuhn, K-U-H-N. Last name, married name is Conger. Born in age 78. The Carisco Arkansas Skivvish Funeral Home is in charge. Coniglio, C-O-N-I-G-L-I-O. Margaret M. Her maiden name was Lorkovic. Last name Coniglio, age 92. The Carisco Arkansas Skivvish Funeral Home is in charge. Memorials can be made to Mercy High School. Cook, Robert L., known as Bob Cook, age 69, of Burbank, South Dakota, formerly of Omaha, though. The Bethany Funeral Home is in charge of the funeral arrangements. Diagosta, spelled D''A''Agosta. John Patrick Diagosta, age 63. Memorials can be made to the Hosea Harper Hospice House. Ephraim Hoffman is in charge of the funeral arrangements at their Bel Air Chapel. Davis, Gary L. Davis, age 49. The Carisco Arkansas Skivvish Funeral Home is in charge. Memorials can be made to the American Diabetes Association. Durman, Kenneth W. Durman. He's retired from the, what says BG USARNG. I don't know what that stands for, but that's what it says. Last name is Durman, D-E-R-M-A-N-N. Roper and Sons Funeral Services in Lincoln is handling the funeral arrangements. That's what it is. The next obituary, DeRoin. It's capital D, small e, capital R-O-I-N. Dr. Dennis DeRoin age 66. Johnny Gentleman is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials are suggested to the Nebraska Methodist Hospital Foundation or the Nebraska Academy of Family Physicians. Dunning. Patricia Frances Dunning, age 91. Ephie Hoffman is handling the arrangements at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials may be made to the Alzheimer's Association or to the Visiting Nurses Association. Dusick. Bonnie L. Dusick, age 64. The Bethany Funeral Home is in charge. Ernst. James N. Ernst, age 81. Garisco Arkansas Scavius Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials are suggested to the family for future designation. Fisk. Mary LaCroix Fisk, age 88. The gentleman is in charge. Han. Reverend Bernadine Leonard Han, 101, a nun of OFM is a Order of Nuns. I don't know what OFM stands for, though. But anyway, it's, I lost it here. Reverend Bernadine Hahn. Her last name is Leonard. 101, he often is handling the arrangements at their Bel Air Chapel. Hare, Haire, it might be Harry, I guess. Michael D. Hare, age 68. The Good Shepherd Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangement. Memorials may be made to the family. Paula J. Harrington, age 71. Ephie Hoffman is handling the arrangements at their Bel Air location. Orpha J. Helfrich, age 93. Ephie Hoffman at their Bel Air Chapel is the mortuary. Memorials may be made to the Historic Presbyterian Center in Madison, Nebraska. Howard Jr. Jimmy L. Howard Jr., age 84. The Thomas Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Jarosz, I'll spell that Jarosz. Matthew Gerard Jarosz, age 49. Good Shepherd Funeral Home is in charge. There'll be no services. La Casse, or maybe La Casse, capital L-A, capital C-A-S-S-E. Dean, or D-E-A-N-N-E, Deanne Belly Armstrong La Casse, age 97, of Bellevue, Nebraska. The Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Ephie Hoffman is in charge of the arrangements. Let's see, memorials. Memorials may be made to support the Bellevue Public Schools graduate through the Metropolitan Community College Foundation through the Ann Trinkle Memorial Scholarship Fund. Ephie Hoffman is in charge of the arrangements at their Bellevue Chapel. Lineback, Donald P., called Donnie, Lineback, age 65. The Chapel of Memories is handling the arrangements. Maher, Clarice Pauline Maher, age 96, born in Percival, Iowa. Johnny Gentleman is in charge. Memorials may be made to St. Robert's School, the Crane Prep, the Marion High School, or the charity of your choice. Muller, Robert John Muller, age 70. Johnny Gentleman is in charge at their Pacific Street Chapel. Moore, M-O-R-E, Pamela R. Moore, age 70, The Chapel of Memories is handling the arrangements. There will be no services. Mueller, Marilyn F. Mueller, age 84. Eve Hoffman is in charge at their Bel Air Chapel. Munson, Catherine A., known as K. Munson, age 83. Eve Hoffman is in charge at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials can be made to the Nebraska Humane Society, or to the Chaska, Minnesota Historical Society, or to the Sienna Francis House here in Omaha. Presley, Riley Presley, age 82. The Good Shepherd Funeral Home is in charge. Pruitt, Melder C. Pruitt, age 96. The Roller Mortuary is in charge of the arrangements and memorials. Or no memorial shown here. Next one, Pulverenti, Sebastian Pulverenti, age 92. The West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the family, which will be donated to the Sons of Italy. Rodig, R-H-O-D-I-G, Alan L. Rodig, age 59. Memorials can be made to your charity. There's no mortuary shown, but there will be a visitation this coming Saturday from 9 until 10 o'clock in the morning. There'll be, following the memorial service will be Loyalty Atonement Lutheran Church, which is located at 4530 North 85th Street. Memorials can be made to your charity of choice. That's more can be made to your choice. Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, Jose Chavez Ruiz, age 76. There'll be no services. Good Shepherd is handling the arrangements. Schroeder, Catherine L. called Kathy. Schroeder, age 62, of Missouri Valley, Iowa. The Tennessee Funeral Home in Missouri Valley is in charge. Memorials can be directed to the family. Sopcich, spelled S-O-P-C-I-C-H. Virginia L. Maiden name was Tallman. Last name is Sopcich, yeah, age 80. The Crosby, Burkett, Swanson, Golden, Colonial Chapel is in charge. Memorials can be made to the Chandler Acres Baptist Church. Steele, Christopher C. Steele, age 92. Memorials can be made to the Sienna Francis House. According to his wishes, an anatomical donation was made to the Creighton University. There'll be a celebration of his life at a mass. Will be held at a later date. Malnove, I'll spell it M-A-L-N-O-V-E. Adam Lee Malnove or Malnovi. A private celebration will be announced in the hall for family and friends. Let me see. I don't see any mortuary shown here. It's a huge notice. So I have a lot to read, but I don't see any mortuary or memorials. Except the only announcement is there'll be a celebration. Will be announced and held for family and friends. Doesn't say when though. Moving on to the next obituary. Stopcote, spelled S-T-O-P. I'll start again, S-T-O-P-P-K-O-T-T-E. Kelly, K. Stopcote, age 46, of Chapman, Nebraska. The Appfell Funeral Home, located in Grand Island, is handling the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the Kelly Stopcote Memorial College Fund. The Apfel Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Theller, it might be Theater, Theilar. John R. Thaler, aged, born this year, February 3rd, a few days ago. The Heafy Hoffman is handling the arrangements at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials will be directed by the family. T-Wald, Tiwald, Kathleen A. T-Wald, age 65. Corisco, Arkansas, Skevich Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangement. Memorials can be made to the Nebraska Kidney Foundation or to the Nebraska Humane Society. Trotter, Julia D. Trotter, age 75. Oh, good with water. The family will direct the memorials. The funeral home is Ahoy Kalinowski Funeral Home located in Council Bluffs. Twent, G-W-E-D-T, Rex E. Twent Sr., age 82. Heafy Hoffman is handling the arrangements at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials can be made to Make-A-Wish Foundation or to the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Lieberhein, I'll spell it Ueberrrhein. Karen L. Lieberhein, age 63, of Valley, Nebraska. The Reisman Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the St. John's Lutheran Church or to the United Farm Community Church in Valley, Nebraska, or to the fire department, Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Vazano, Sam J. Vazano, age 97. Even Hoffman is at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials can be made, or will be made to, memorials should be directed by the family. They are going to be. Zahn, Terry R., known as Randy, Zahn with a Z, age 73. Even Hoffman is in charge at their Bel Air Chapel. Memorials can be made to the Heartland Airborne Memorial or Dad's Way, which stands for Dads Against Diabetes Association. Clever. And the last obituary from the World Herald is Zyblut. I'll spell that Z-B-Y-L-U-T. Jacqueline, her maiden name was McDonald. Zbylot, age 81. The Reisman Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Memorials can be made to the American Cancer Society or the Nebraska Humane Society. And those are the obituaries from the Omaha World Herald.
Thank you, Jack. The time is 10:58, and here are the deaths and funerals in the Journal Star. The first is Abbott, Helen G. Abbott, age 98, of Lincoln, died February 2nd, born in Davie on July of 1918. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Research and Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling. Bedell, B-E-D-E-A-U-X, Delbert H. Bedell, age 82, of Fairbury, passed away February 7th. Gertis Meyer Chapel is handling. Blaine, B-L-A-I-N, Mary Ann Blaine, age 89, of Lincoln, passed away February 4th. She was born October 1927. Memorials in lieu of flowers may be directed to Tabitha Foundation in Lincoln and Lincoln Memorial Park Cemetery. So, Buhr, B-U-H-R, Michael D. Buhr of Beatrice, born December 1950, passed away February 7th, age 66. Burley, Gilbert Arthur Burley, born November 1935 in San Diego, California, and died February 7th, served in the United States Navy. And that's Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Cantwell, Patricia Ann Rosinski Cantwell, age 84, of Lincoln, died February 4th. She was born December 1932 in Detroit, Michigan. The Thirst Mazer and Love Funeral Home, Lincoln, is handling. Carpenter, Darrell D. Carpenter, born in Nebraska, February 1928, served in the United States Army. Memorial gifts are requested to be sent to the Douglas Rose Hill Cemetery Association in Douglas, Nebraska. And a celebration of his life will be held at 11:30 a.m. with a viewing at 11:15 a.m. on February 11th at the Methodist Church in Douglas. Davis, Cheryl Jean Davis, maiden name Stallhut and Bishop. Cheryl Davis, age 69 of Lincoln, passed away February 5th. Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling, and in lieu of flowers, memorials may be directed to the family for a later charitable designation. Derman, D-E-R-M-A-N-N. Kenneth W. Derman, B-G-U-S-A-R-N-G, retired, age 89 of Lincoln, passed away February 4th. Memorials and laurel flowers to the Bryan LGH East Hospital, Fort Lincoln, Nebraska, or Good Shepherd Presbyterian Church, Lincoln, the funeral home, Roper and Sons. Franklin, Louis Franklin, age 95 of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, passed away February 4th. Served our country, the United States Air Force during World War II. The funeral home is Collins Burke Funeral Home, and I don't know what city that is. I'm sorry. Franson, F-R-A-N-S-S-E-N. Jacob J. Franson, Sr., age 71, passed away February 2nd. Memorial suggested to the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation. And services will be at 11 a.m. Saturday, February 11th at St. Thomas More Newman Center in Columbia, Missouri. Hetrick, Valerie Hetrick, age 46 of Grand Island, passed away February 7th, born February 7th, 1970 in Omaha. That's Livingston Sonderman Funeral Home, assisting the family. Iberg, I-B-U-R-G, David L. Iberg, born September 1965, passed away February 4th, age 51. That's Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Kostal, K-O-S-T-A-L, Joanne Pearl Kostal of Odell, born September 1933, passed away February 5th, age 83. Merriman, M-E-R-R-Y-M-A-N, Ruth E. Sutter Merriman, age 99 of Geneva, passed away February 3rd, born December 1917 in rural Geneva. And that's memorials to the family to be designated at a later date, and Farmer and Sons Funeral Home is listed. Myers, M-E-Y-E-R-S, Kurt Myers, born March 1954, passed away February 3rd. Celebration of life services will be held at a later date. Mock, Joseph H. Mock, age 79 of Lincoln, passed away February 8th. Born in Chicago in September of 1937. Memorials to the Nebraska Alzheimer's Association or to the family for later designation, and Bethuras Mazer and Love Funeral Home is handling. Mueller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. Don E. Mueller, age 82 of Hudson, passed away February 2nd. Born October 1934 in Oconee. He was a United States Air Force vet, and the funeral home is Kibler Brady Restman Memorial Home in Bloomington, Illinois. Rink, R-I-N-C-K. Dan Carl Rink of Plattsmouth, born January 1954, passed away February 6th, age 63. Roper, Sylvia J. Roper, born June 1932, passed away February 6th. Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling, and memorials are suggested to the family for later designation. Rutledge, Terry W. Rutledge, age 45 of Hamburg, Iowa, and Talmadge, passed away February 2nd. Goody Funeral Home is handling. Sauter, S-A-U-T-T-E-R. Vera Elena Sauter, age 91 of Alliance, died February 4th. She was born January 1926. University Place in Lincoln. That's Bates Gould Funeral Home in charge of the arrangements and memorials to Youth for Christ, the Alliance United Methodist Church, or Arbor Day Foundation. Summers, Jack Eugene Summers, age 83 of Lincoln, died January 30th. And that's Aspen Aftercare. Stopcotti, S-T-O-P-P-K-O-T-T-E, I hope that's right. Kelly K. Stopcotti, age 46 of Chapman, died February 7th, born August 1970 in Lincoln. The family requests that instead of sending flowers, please make memorials to the Kelly Stopcotti Memorial Funeral Fund, Memorial College Fund, Ockville Funeral Home is handling. Thelen, Thelen. Janelle Thelen, age 81, of Seward, passed away February 7th, born September 1935 in Bloomfield. Volsky Funeral Home, Seward, is handling. Vance Bernard, his nickname was Socio Lee Vance Jr., born in Lincoln, September 1961, passed away February 5th at the age of 55. He served in the armed services. And the service 10:30 Thursday, February 9th at the Indian Center, 1100 Military in Lincoln. Wagner, William James Wagner, age 39, of Lincoln, passed away February 5th, born February 1977 in Denver. Memorials to the family for later designation and Bethuras Major-in-Law Funeral Home is handling. Wallentyne, John, they called him Jack, John T. Wallentyne, age 85, of Lincoln, passed away February 4th. He was born January 1932 in Lincoln, served in the United States Marine Corps. In lieu of flowers, memorials to St. John's Catholic Church and Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling. Wehmer, Wehmer, Gaylord G. Wehmer, age 89, of Tecumseh, died February 5th. Born March 1927 at Sterling, Warren Mortuary is handling. Werner, Eugene Earl Werner, age 70, of Carlton, passed away February 6th. Kroll Funeral Home, Deschler is handling. Yickley, Yeakley, Terry Ray Yeakley of Lincoln, born December 1962, passed away February 6th, age 54. And the last is Zeisler, Lois A. Zeisler, age 73, of Lincoln, passed away February 7th. She was born January 1944 in Beatrice. Memorials are suggested to the Cat House or Capital Humane Society. The funeral home is Bethuras Major and Love Chapel. And those are the deaths in the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Thank you, Bill. Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind. Memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent here to the Radio Talking Book Network. We're located at 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite. Omaha, Nebraska is where we're located, and the zip code here is 68152. Thank you very much for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter.
Jack and I will be right back. We hope you will be too. Here's Paul.
Thank you very much, Bill Everhart and Jack Gibbs, for reading the first hour of today's newspapers. We will be back after a short break for the second hour of reading. Thank you both.
Good night.
Are tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska, and at this time we'd like to present the senior meal home delivery meal menus for today. Here with the home delivery menu today is Ann Pelican. Welcome, Ann.
For Thursday, February 9th, broccoli strata with ham, roasted potato medley, orange juice, blueberry muffin with margarine, hot peaches, and a pint of 1% milk.
And we thank you very much, Ann Pelican. And remember, you can hear an expanded version, which includes today's menu, the one you just heard, and then tomorrow's menu along with that at about 1 p.m., just before Gene Gray's short story bookshelf program. Now, here is Ann Pelican once again to tell us about this Saturday night at the movie presentation.
Hi everybody, this is Ann Pelican, and I want to tell you a little bit about the movie that we will be presenting for Saturday night at the movie, 6:30 p.m. The movie I have chosen is a really good one. It is Titanic. This is such a great love story. So anyway, that's what we will be presenting this week for Saturday night at the movies, Titanic. Hope to see everybody there.
And thank you very much for that, Ann Pelican. And now, with the sports event coming up this Saturday, here is Beckham Journey.
Outlook Nebraska is pleased to announce the audio-described production of the true story of the Three Little Pigs, performed live at the Rose Theater Saturday, February 11th at 2 p.m. with the audio description pre-show starting at 1:40 p.m. Think you know the story of the mean old big bad wolf and the poor persecuted three little pigs? This preposterous parody set in worker-centric Pennsylvania may muddle your memory. Call the box office to purchase tickets and reserve your audio description headset at 402-345-4849.
And thank you very much, Becca Judy. Obviously, it's not the sports event she was talking about there, but it sounds like a very interesting audio described program. You're tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska, proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners for over 42 years. The Radio Talking Book Network is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS-FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. Now, let's return to our fine readers for the second hour reading from today's Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal-Star. Here once again are our stars, Jack Gibbs and Bill Everhart.
Thank you, Paul, very, very, very much. We're going to start off our sports with editorial. Very good, though. This is written by Jim Martin. He is an assistant professor of interdisciplinary leadership at Creighton. President Donald Trump's January 27th executive order, now on hold as it works its way through the courts, temporarily bans refugees from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The stated purpose is to prevent terrorists from entering the U.S. It's Trump's most controversial executive order. The executive order affects refugees and, in practice, other individuals who are traveling from the 7 countries. In the year 2015, the last year for which complete data are available, the U.S. accepted roughly 70,000 refugees from around the world. As one might suspect, these refugees came from a variety of troubled countries. About 28,000 of these refugees were from countries on the banned list, according to the Migration Policy Institute. This brief analysis explores the logic of the executive order, namely, was the threat of terrorism considered? The executive order mentions that so-called war, strife, disaster, and civil unrest increase the likelihood that terrorists will use or means to enter the U.S. Most of the 7 countries subject to the executive order, all but Iran, were among the top 10 countries suffering from the high incidence of terrorism in the year 2015, according to the Institute of Economic Peace. However, a number of other countries that also suffer from terrorism are not affected, including Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Egypt. This suggests that policymakers do not exclusively use the prevalence of terrorism as a criteria for inclusion on the banned list. Are these states sponsors of terrorism? Perhaps a reputation as a government sponsor of terrorism was a rationale. That makes sense for some, like Iran, Somalia, Sudan, and Syria, but not others on the banned list. Moreover, Afghanistan, Egypt, and Pakistan reportedly have histories of intelligence and military services that support terrorism. This didn't seem to be a consideration for the policymakers. Why conduct a factor? Well, no, was conflict a factor? As noted, war and strife and civil unrest are discussed in the executive order. Insurgencies are present in most of the countries affected. However, several other Thai terrorism incident countries present insurgencies: Afghanistan, Nigeria, Thailand, and Ukraine, among others. This does not appear to be a central factor for inclusion on the list. Is the policy xenophobic? The banned countries are populated mostly by Muslims of various denominations. However, many high terrorism rate countries that aren't on the banned list also have large Muslim populations. Like the countries affected by the executive order, Many high terrorism and conflict-prone countries are non-Christian majority and are ethnically diverse. As such, the executive order does not appear to be motivated by a racial or religious bias. What's the role of trade? Some might ask, what's the potential cost of banning the refugees and discouraging travel to and from countries on the banned list? The president appears to value export trade. He may be less likely to endanger valuable trade relationships, all else being equal. A review of U.S. export relationships provided by the Census Bureau reveals that Iraq was the most valuable export relationship among the banned countries, purchasing roughly $101.6 billion in U.S. goods in the year 2015. The other banned countries fell well below that. For example, the U.S. exported $280 billion in goods to our largest trading partner, namely Canada, in the year 2015. Thus, the prevalence of terrorism, the state support of terrorism, or any insurgency within a country do not appear to be a criteria. However, all the banned countries are minor U.S. trade partners, suggesting that the cost to U.S. exporters was a consideration. The creation of government policies involves many complex inputs, not all analyzed here. However, given that we know the executive order contains a list of well-known suspects that didn't trade much with our country, the executive order seems more a low-cost publicity venture created to meet a campaign promise than a serious policy designed to enhance domestic security. That's what Jim Martin has to say.
Thank you, Jack. Here's a local view from the Journal Star, and it was written by Paul Fieldblad. And he said that Republican Party has abandoned Nebraska. The trend was pretty clear for anyone paying attention, but two Nebraska senators voting to approve a Secretary of Education committed to doing away with public schools puts it right there in your face. You cannot be a Republican politician unless you're willing to do what you're told. And those who pull the Republican strings do not give a damn about the people of Nebraska. Take the Keystone XL pipeline as an example. To a person, the Nebraska Republican contingent supports this. Not one is opposed. Just think about that for a minute. Not one Republican is willing to say, you know, allowing a foreign corporation to declare eminent domain in this country seems a little dicey. 35 permanent jobs, none of which are guaranteed to be in Nebraska, and some additional property tax, and every Republican is persuaded. Really? Sadly, they do what they're told. Commanding blind obedience is what happens when a party capitulates to the ultra-wealthy, a mere sliver of the population. It has to run conscience subdued, will do what they're told. After all, acting on behalf of 98% of Americans is an altogether different political agenda than acting on behalf of the top 2%. The ultra-wealthy live in fear that one day people will wake up and demand that they pay a higher tax percentage than their secretaries, perhaps even that they pay Eisenhower tax rates. Since they fear that above all else, they tell their politicians what to do. They tell them to vehemently oppose raising the minimum wage. They tell them to do away with or privatize Social Security, do away with Medicare, cut Medicaid, repeal Obamacare, do away with public schools, do away with the post office, do away with any public project that might cause them to pay higher taxes. And Republican politicians do what they're told. The Republican agenda is not very people-friendly. Certainly it is an anti-Nebraska agenda, but they have found ways to get votes and elsewhere to suppress votes. They have jumped on wedge issues like guns, abortion, and immigration, knowing that for some, those issues trump everything else. These are distractions, really, and I don't believe there are many Republican politicians at the national level who care much about any of these issues. They must act like they care, however, because the real agenda doesn't sell. Still, now and then, we get a glimpse of that real agenda, as with the nomination of Betsy DeVos. The tragedy inherent in what the Republican Party has become is that its politicians must sacrifice their integrity for their job. They have to pretend that weak arguments are actually strong. They have to pretend a foreign corporation declaring eminent domain is totally cool. I cringe on their behalf. It must be soul-crushing to be inescapably manipulated by corporate power. Not that there aren't those who are blissfully oblivious to the needs of citizens, the trust fund kids, those who have had everything handed to them, those who have never had to stress about whether the money would last the month, those who have never had to work at a task that looks like it has no end. You know, the Koch brothers, Pete Ricketts, Donald Trump, those sorts of folks. No soul crushing going on there, no soul there. The last Nebraska Republican of substance, the last one who was willing to act his conscience and serve his constituents rather than Republican bosses, was Chuck Hagel. Remember how they turned on him? How dare he use his own mind? To hell with the people of Nebraska. Republican politicians must do what they're told, period. Ben Sass and Deb Fisher just proved it. Their contribution as senators may well be to shake us out of our slumber and reignite the will to check corporate powers and demand justice, just as our grandparents and great-grandparents did. If that proves to be the case, the congressional tenure of Fisher and Sass may not be the waste it looks like now. 11:21, here's Jack.
11:21, we move from the subject of editorials and what do you call it? Public pulse letters. On to the living section. We call this today's living and entertainment. I don't know if it's entertaining or not, but it's what our section. Mine has a lot to do with, at least the articles have to do with planting seeds and stuff like that. Which isn't too far away. Spring is around the corner. Might be a long block to the corner, but anyway, it's around. And the first article I have in the living section is says about planting from seeds. It encourages us people who plant flowers and vegetables to do it from seed. When I first grew vegetables 10 years ago or more, every gardener started with a packet of seeds. Most seeds are planted directly in the garden. Others, like tomatoes and peppers, were given an early start indoors. I don't remember many transplants offered for sale back then. Certainly not quick maturing vegetables such as lettuce or vining crops like cucumbers or melons. We expected our seeds to succeed, and they did. That's why I find it so curious when I talk to some younger gardeners who actually seem scared of seeds. Seeds want to grow. That's what seeds do. If you're one of those people who think there's something mysterious about growing from seed, go to easyfromseed.org. This site is maintained by the Home Garden Seed Association, which is a coalition of companies that market seeds to home gardeners. You'll find an answer to just about any question you might have about this rewarding endeavor. Renee Shepard, who is the president of the association and owner of Renee's Garden Seed Company, offers an important tip that she wishes everyone followed, namely this: read the seed packets. Most include a wealth of information, including a description of the variety, when to plant the seeds, how deep, how far apart, when to thin out, when to harvest, how to keep the plants thriving, and sometimes even serving tips. Seed packets are also marked with the year the seeds were packed. If you have leftover seeds saved from last year, most kinds will be just fine. Tomatoes and squash seeds, for example, could keep at least 4 years. Onions, leeks, parsnips, on the other hand, are short-lived and should be purchased fresh every year. The website has a chart showing expected seed longevity, assuming you stored the leftover seeds in a cool, dry place. If in doubt about the viability of the saved seeds, follow the instructions for a simple germination test. When your seeds have sprouted, don't forget to thin them. Shepherds say that failure to thin is one of the top reasons people fail when growing from seed. Luckily, the thinnings of crops such as beets and kale are fine additions to salads. I depend on seeds for planting new crops as first ones finish, called succession planting. Whenever I have a few square feet of bare garden space available, I drop a few new seeds into the soil. If I had to run out and find a source of transplants every time, I'd have a tiny space to fill. Succession planting probably wouldn't happen. Good candidates for succession crops to plant during the summer include beets, beans, carrots, kohlrabi, and bunching onions. Bunching onions, huh?
Yeah,
What's a bunching onion?
I don't know that one either, but that sure sounds like spring to me.
Well, yeah, sure enough.
Here's Ask Amy. She says, parents upset about daughter's drinking. Dear Amy, my wife and I worry about our daughter. She's a sophomore at a top university. She's made the honor roll for 3 semesters in a row. Obviously, her academic progress is not our concern. What we don't talk about is her worsening drinking problem. Since she started college, she's been cited twice for underage drinking, minor in possession, and broken her wrist in a fall that we all know was alcohol related. We don't know how, if, or when to say anything about our suspicions and fears. Ours is not a family comfortable with open discussion about sensitive subjects. We tend to go the ostrich route. In my gut, I feel we're heading for disaster. How can we intervene before something even worse happens? She has a car on campus and we worry most about her driving drunk. Signed, Worried Parents. Dear Worried, according to a recent government study, 39% of college students binge drink within the last month. If your daughter is drinking, it makes her vulnerable to legal consequences, like getting caught, physical injury, this has already happened, unwanted sexual contact, fractured relationships, hurting or injuring others by driving drunk, and the possibility of graduating from college with a serious drinking problem. I hope you're brave enough to take your heads out of the sand in order to try to be honest about your concerns. Intervening now, before she is of legal drinking age, might be the most effective. Colleges have a long way to go to control student drinking. Your daughter's school may only fine her and require her to take online alcohol educational resources, but you are her parents. In your gut, you feel you're headed for disaster. I hope you will violate your family's ostrich technique and open up to this topic for loving parent-to-daughter talk. Expect her to laugh, deny, deflect, and maybe even blame you. Tell her that your concerns are so grave that you don't trust her with the car. A DWI could not only alter or end another person's life, but ruin hers. Expect this conversation to be awkward and challenging, but have it anyway. Realistically, you may not be able to alter her drinking, but your own honesty and vulnerability may eventually inspire her to take her own head out of the sand and be honest with herself, if not with you. The dean's office at your daughter's school might help. Drinking Prevention Gov has some helpful information and ideas. The next, dear Amy, my wife and I have been married for more than 25 years. We tell each other how much we love each other. For many of those years, we were sexually intimate. Suddenly, about 10 years ago, she stopped. We still hold hands and touch each other, but have no sexual contact. I don't want to go outside our marriage, but it is really starting to bother me. We are both well over 50, but I feel as though there are still years of intimacy that could be had. Do I just accept it the way it is and find someone else to release this frustration? Or is this normal for our ages? I have never cheated and don't really want to start now. Signed, Frustrated. The reply to Frustrated, if I told you this was normal, would you feel better? I don't think you would. Having an affectionate, loving, non-sexual relationship does happen in many long-term marriages, but one or the other partners often seem to feel cheated, lonely, sad, and or frustrated. You have been tolerating this for 10 years, which demonstrates a heroic amount of patience. But now this involuntary chastity is starting to bother you. And so you should take the very first step toward either starting to mend the problem or at least understand it. Talk to your wife. A book that might help both of you is The Sex-Starved Marriage, Boosting Your Marriage Libido, a couple's guide by therapist Michelle Weiner Davis and 2004 Simon & Schuster. And the last, dear Amy, responding to the upset wife whose irresponsible husband was insisting on bringing another dog home. A spouse is infinitely more important than any dog. Bringing a dog into such a family amounts to depraved cruelty to both. This guy should be just barely cleared to own a dog, but does not deserve to have a wife. Signed, Dog Lover and Wife Lover. Dear dog lover, I like the way you put this. Here's Jack.
Thank you. Here's some, this is 10 ways to get happier and healthier in the year 2017. Let's say the newspaper that put this out is the Miami Herald. It happens every year. On January 1st, we set over the top ambitious New Year's resolutions to say, lose 15 pounds, declutter the whole house, kick credit card habit to the curb. Then life happens. And by February, those resolutions evaporate like spilled champagne. But who says you have to wait until next year for a do-over? Now might be the perfect time for a resolution reset. Here are 10 simplifying tools that might inspire you to keep reaching for a happier and healthier 2017. First one has listed, it says, eat better. Crash diets are so 2016. That means it goes back that far. If you want a healthy eating plan that sticks, try the no gimmicks DASH diet, which emphasizes whole foods and doesn't omit any food groups such as grains or meat or dairy. Master your gadgets. Do you know how to recover photos after accidentally deleting them? Or how to bring a damp smartphone back from the dead? Stress less. If increasing mindfulness is at the top of your to-do list, but you can't seem to carve out 5 minutes a day to meditate, try Headspace, which is an application that bills itself as a gym membership for your mind. Since launching in 2010, Headspace has amassed more than 5 million users. Give back. Want to better your community in 2017? It's not too late to start giving time or money to a cause that speaks to you specifically. One idea is this. Sleepyhead Beds provides clean, recycled beds and bedding to local families with children who need a comfortable place to sleep. Volunteers can donate gently used bedding, give $30 to help pay for the delivery of a child's bed, or help sanitize it, or pick it up, or go deliver beds. Get fit physically. Here's always a reason not to go to the gym. It's too cold, it's too hot, it's too late. You missed that class, you forgot those shoes. Skip the excuses and start working out at home with a streaming service such as Daily Burn, which is like Netflix for fitness fans. For some $15 per month, you get access to more than 600 workouts, including yoga, dance, cardio, and weightlifting. The sweat sessions are led by certified trainers such as Bob Harper with NBC's The Biggest Loser. Clear Clutter is the next helpful hint. If paring down possessions in your goal, get inspiration from the minimalist, 2 30-something friends who dropped out of corporate careers and consumer-driven lifestyles in pursuit of the simple life. Start saving is the 8th way to start having a better life. Investing can be intimidating, especially for first-timers who know squat about stocks and bonds, but several apps out there make diversifying your financial portfolio easy. Acorns, which costs only $1 a month, allows you to automatically invest spare change with every purchase. The application syncs with your credit cards and rounds every transaction to the nearest dollar. And the last helpful hint is produce more. Up productivity is what they call it. Anyone who uses a planner to stay organized knows that daily to-do lists can quickly get out of control. As the days goes by, the list grows, and so does the desire to procrastinate. The Productivity Planner, which is a daily organizer from the Toronto-based company called Intelligent Change, helps a person focus on important tasks, not the busy work that makes days slip away. And all of a sudden, it's the year 2018. Those are the helpful hints that the writer, what's the newspaper, the Miami Herald.
Thank you, Jack. Here's Ask the Doctors. And the headline says, abuse of Adderall creates problems. Excuse me. Dear doctor, I know that Adderall is prescribed by children with ADHD, but lately I've been reading stories about college kids who use Adderall to help them study. What is Adderall and who should take it? Dear reader, you've hit on a topic that's timely, complex, and quite often controversial. When prescribed and used properly, Adderall can be beneficial. But as with any prescription drug, off-label use can create a host of problems. Look at first-person accounts and you'll find numerous parents of children with ADHD, that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, who detail the ways that Adderall has helped their son or daughter. But it doesn't take much digging to find that abuse of the drug is a growing problem. Let's start with the drug itself. Adderall is the brand name of a prescription drug composed of two stimulants, amphetamine and dextroamphetamine. It has been approved by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, to treat children, adolescents, and adults who have been diagnosed with ADHD, a condition marked by a cluster of disruptive behaviors. These may include agitation, lack of focus, disorganization, forgetfulness, fidgeting, excessive talking, or frequent interrupting. Adderall is not approved for use by anyone younger than 6 years old. As with all stimulants, Adderall increases the levels of dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is a chemical known as a neurotransmitter, which plays a role in learning ability, movement, attention, and in feelings of pleasure and even euphoria. Adderall helps people with ADHD feel calm and remain focused. The problem is that Adderall abuse among young adults is rising. According to research conducted at Johns Hopkins University, the number of prescriptions for Adderall among young adults remains steady. However, levels of abuse as well as visits to the emergency room due to adverse effects of that abuse has spiked. The newest research shows that misuse of Adderall is highest among young adults between the ages of 18 and 25. Although some may obtain their own prescription, most are either buying the medication illegally or getting it from family members or friends. Between 2009 and 2011, the time period covered by the study, use of Adderall among young adults without a prescription rose by 67%. During that same time period, ER visits associated with non-prescription Adderall use rose by more than 150%. The drug has a reputation as a study aid that increases concentration and sharpens focus, but non-prescription use of Adderall carries serious risks. Common side effects include stomach upset, increased heart rate, dizziness, dry mouth, and mood swings. Adderall is a controlled substance, and possession without a prescription is a felony. The bottom line is that non-prescription use of Adderall for any reason is both dangerous and illegal. Here's Jack.
Here's a helpful thing to do. Reduce food waste, it says here. Remember how it was when you were a kid sitting at the kitchen table and your mother served up a healthy helping of rutabaga? Gross, right? You slipped into the family dog, or you spooned them into a napkin to get them out of sight. But there was no fooling Mom. Your failed sleight of hand resulted in a guilt trip and membership in the Clean Your Plate Club. Fast forward to today, and you'll find that wasting food has costly consequences, extending well beyond your plate. Getting food from the farm to your fork eats up 10% of the total U.S. energy budget, uses 50% of the U.S. land, and swallows 80% of all fresh water consumed in the United States. Yet, 40% of food in the United States goes uneaten, according to the Natural Resources Defense Council. The Environmental Advocacy Group says that cutting food waste by just 15% would help feed more than 25 million people a year, at a time when 1 in 6 Americans lack a secure supply of food to their tables. Alice Hingman, who is an extension educator at UNO in Lincoln, puts it another way. Food tossed is money lost. Food rots when dumped in a landfill and produces methane, which is a greenhouse gas set to contribute to climate change. Food waste in stores and restaurants cuts into profits, but incentives have been introduced to reduce food waste, many of them financial. Tax benefits are available for restaurants and stores for donating food. People are buying ugly food and vegetables or produce that is misshapen in appearance in stores because stores are offering them at a discount. Michigan State University has been aggressive about fighting food waste in its 10 dining halls, where more than 30,000 meals are served each day. Well, I say we got 20 minutes left of our broadcast this morning, which is makes it 11:40.
Yay.
So I guess we move from living to a couple minutes for money.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to go first?
Oh, here I have a short article. This is about it says chicken farmers file a lawsuit. Former chicken farmers in 5 states have filed a federal lawsuit accusing giant poultry processing companies of treating the farmers who raise the chickens like indentured servants and colluding to fix prices paid to them. The farmers located in Alabama, Mississippi, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Texas allege that the contract grower system created by Tyson Foods, Pilgrim's Pride, Purdue Farms, and Sanderson Farms pushed them deep into debt. They are seeking class action status for the suit filed in federal court in Muskogee, Oklahoma. The companies named haven't yet responded to the lawsuit, but Tyson denied the allegations. Little news about United Airlines. They experienced delays for hundreds of flights at airports across the country because of a system-wide computer problem. An airline spokeswoman said the glitch prevented crews from creating flight plans on domestic and international flights for several hours. The problem was unrelated to a computer outage that grounded all United domestic flights for more than 2 hours on January 22nd. Tracking service Flightware.com counted more than 500 delayed flights by mid-afternoon yesterday. And that's my money news.
Okay, thank you. Dow and DuPont push merger approval. Dow Chemical and DuPont say they're willing to make more business divestments as a way to nudge European regulators who remain wary of their proposed merger. The companies plan to join in a $62 billion deal and then break apart into 3 separate publicly traded companies. The companies would focus on agriculture, material science, and the production and sale of specialty products, respectively. Antitrust regulators remain hesitant, however. Dow spokeswoman Rachel Shikara said Wednesday that among the concessions the companies are willing to make are the sale of part of DuPont's crop protection business, along with its associate research and development, and the sale of Dow Chemical's acid copolymers and ionomers business. And one other thing, and that is glitch caused delays for United Airlines. United Airlines says it fixed a technology problem that delayed hundreds of flights around the country on Wednesday. An airline spokeswoman said the glitch prevented crews from creating flight plans on domestic and international flights for several hours. The problem was unrelated to a computer outage that grounded all United domestic flights for more than 2 hours on January the 22nd. Tracking service FlightAware.com delayed United flights by mid-afternoon Wednesday. More than 30 were canceled, but the United spokeswoman said those were unrelated to the technology issue. The website showed 1 delayed United flight in Omaha and 2 in Lincoln. At 11:44. Here's Jack.
Well, I don't have hardly anything about money here. But I suppose we could jump to sports and see if I have anything else. There was something that was kind of caught my eye here about, it was about insect farming. Insect farming. What? The insect? Well, can't be. Well, here's something, about reducing food waste. Remember how? No, I already read that one. I'm ahead of myself. Where'd that appear? Still working out the bugs is the task. But let me see. Most food companies hope to keep bugs out of their products. The Nebraska business is trying to figure out just how many insects they can put in. Crickets, ground to a powder, are a key ingredient in new pasta and rice products being developed by Bug Eater Foods. The goal is to get as much buggy nutrition into the pasta as possible while still making a product that looks and tastes good and cooks properly. I don't know if this is of any interest or not. Okay, the better it tastes, the better the chance of getting consumers to overcome their aversion to eating insects, which are high in protein, healthy fats, fuel, fiber, vitamins, and minerals, but also, for many people, high in the ick factor. It would be. Along with expanding the supply chain of crickets raised for human and livestock consumption, overcoming people's aversion to eating bugs is the biggest hurdle for the insect protein industry. Using insects in staple foods like rice and noodles is a new direction for Bug Eater, which launched in January of the year 2015. Taking its name from the pre-Cornhuskers 1890 era Nebraska football team, the company started out with a focus on a protein shake product called Jump. It sells the cricket-based shake powder online and also distributed samples through a 2015 partnership with Lincoln Vitamin and supplement seller Bulu Box. Recently, he secured distribution through Hy-Vee supermarkets and said Jump is now available at some of the Iowa's retailer stores. And that's my news about bugs.
All right. Well, in
we cut down on our product.
In sports, here's the NU and area news. Concordia women clinch at least share of GPAC title. Quinn Raggi scored 19 points, and the Concordia women's basketball team clinched at least a share of the Great Plains Athletic Conference regular season championship with a 97-73 win against Doane on Wednesday night. Raggi finished 7 of 10 from the field, while Philomena Lammers and Erin Weiselmeyer each added 16 points for the NAIA Division II No. 2 Bulldogs. Concordia, with 25 wins, 1 loss, and 16-0 in conference GPAC, has won 24 straight games after dropping the season opener. The Bulldogs play at Briarcliff, who are 14-12 on Saturday, then wrap up the season at number 8 Dakota Wesleyan on Sunday. Hannah Barnard led Doane with a game-high 20 points. In track, the Big Ten tabbed Nebraska senior Tiara Williams as its Women's Field Athlete of the Week. Williams won the long jump at the Frank Savine Husker International and make that invitational with her best mark of the indoor season at 20 feet 5 inches. That mark leads the Big Ten and ranks 19th nationally. Concordia sophomore Allie Brooks was named the NAIA National Women's Indoor Field Athlete of the Week, in addition to earning GPAC weekly honors. The Seward graduate broke her own school pole vault record last week and then broke a more than 30-year-old program record in the high jump. Brooks leads the NAIA with a mark of 12 foot 10 3/4 in the pole vault and is tied for 4th nationally in the high jump at 5 feet 7 inches. Concordia swept the GPAC Men's Weekly Honors with Lucas Weichman named Field Event Athlete of the Week and CJ Muller the Track Events Athlete of the Week. Weichman has a NAIA's leading heptathlons total, and Muller has NAIA's 3rd best time in the 600 meters. And in tennis, the undefeated Nebraska women continue their season opening homestand as Eastern Michigan and Creighton come to the Dillon Tennis Center. The Huskers, with 5-0, face Eastern Michigan at 5 p.m. Friday, and the in-state rival Blue Jays at noon Sunday. NU is 12-0 at all time against Eastern Michigan and 28-0 against Creighton. Admission to both matches is free. What a deal. Here's Jack.
Here's some Creighton basketball news. Reading through it, the good part of it is about their Hansen, who he's the injured player, but I found it interesting. The midseason injury has complicated Creighton's postseason profile, but the Blue Jays should soon receive an indication of how the selection committee will assess their unusual resume. The 10-member panel that'll pick the 68-team field in March is releasing its own top 16 ranking in Made for TV Moments Saturday morning. And Creighton, at least to this point, appears to have a strong case to be included in that top tier. The only problem? Creighton is 3-3 since Morris Watson suffered a season-ending injury some 3 weeks ago, and the up and down stretch only fuels the assumption that the Jays aren't as lethal weapon without their All-American guard. So it remains unclear to what extent, if any, Creighton at-large candidacy will be downgraded. Saturday's top 16 announcement could provide a glimpse. Injuries, suspensions, absences of coaches, transfers, new eligibility, all of those items were discussed, says Bruce Rasmussen, who's the vice chairman of the NCAA selection committee. Rasmussen, who's also Creighton's longtime athletic director, didn't provide many specifics when speaking on a teleconference Wednesday morning. Rasmussen won't be allowed in the committee room this week or in March when his colleagues are discussing the Jays. He can't vote for them either. Creighton will certainly be considered for this weekend's top 16 reveal, which is set for 11 o'clock Saturday morning on CBS. It'll be the first time that the selection committee unveils a set of mid-season rankings, serving as a sampling of where the top teams stand about 1 month before the official seeding process. It will likely be noteworthy for Creighton. As of Wednesday afternoon, the Jays had the 16th best ranking in the rating percentage index. The primary metric, which is called that's what it's called, the RPI. The primary metric used by the selection committee to evaluate contenders for at-large NCAA tournament berths. They produce a 6-2 mark against RPI's top 50 teams. Only 5 teams nationally had more wins. They had a .714 winning percentage against the RPI top 100. It's just that many of those compliments came with Watson on the court. But what does that mean for Creighton? We can't project whether a team would have won or lost with a full complement of players. According to Rasmussen, speaking yesterday on the committee's behalf, it's just a discussion item that we have and it's looked at really on a case-by-case basis. Creighton's situation is different than most, though. New coach Mike Krzyzewski missed several weeks after back surgery, but has returned to the sideline. South Carolina played a good portion of its non-conference schedule without leading scorer Sandris Thornwell, but he's since returned to Arizona, just added playmaker Alzado Trier back into his lineup. Oregon had to start the year without then-injured Dylan Brooks. But the Jays don't get Watson back, and it remains to be seen how the committee will judge them. Two of the most readily referenced comparisons, Cincinnati in the year 2000 and Purdue in 2010, would suggest that Creighton may not get much benefit of the doubt. Bill?
Thank you, Jack. Excuse me. I'm getting there. Oakley is arrested at Knicks game. Former Knicks star Charles Oakley was escorted from his seat at Madison Square Garden in New York and arrested after an altercation near team owner James Dolan. Oakley shoved security guards before they pulled him away from his seat behind the baseline during the first quarter of the Knicks game against the LA Clippers on Wednesday night. Fans chanted, "Oakley, Oakley," in support of the popular power forward. Charles Oakley came to the game tonight and behaved in a highly inappropriate and completely abusive manner, the Knicks wrote in a statement on Twitter. And in baseball, Miami slugger Giancarlo Stanton and Baltimore star Adam Jones are among the returnees on the 28-man U.S. World Baseball Classic roster, which also includes Colorado's Nolan Arenado, Arizona's Paul Goldschmidt, San Francisco's Buster Posey, and Pittsburgh Andrew McCutchen. Cleveland reliever Andrew Miller is part of the 13-man pitching staff that also has Tampa Bay's Chris Archer, Kansas City's Danny Duffy, Detroit's Michael Fulmer, Oakland's Sonny Gray, Toronto's J.A. Happ, and Marcus Stroman, and Seattle's Drew Smyly. The WBC will be held March 6th through the 22nd in Japan, South Korea, Mexico, and the U.S. And the Cincinnati Reds starter Homer Bailey had arthroscopic surgery to remove bone spurs from his pitching elbow Wednesday and is expected to be on the disabled list at the start of the season. Here's Jack.
Well, trying to find some football news, but it's almost all basketball. I guess I just can't find any that's worth. So, well, here's some news about the new coach. Nebraska is prepared to bring a veteran hand to a young defensive staff with the addition of Bob Elliott. Elliott, who's 63, took his first job as an Iowa graduate assistant back in 1976. He's been involved with other coaching staffs for college 40 plus years since then, most recently with Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. A person close to the situation told the World Herald on Wednesday night that Elliott was being picked to fill Brian Stewart's spot on the Nebraska staff. The expected hiring also was reported by 247 Sports. I guess that's some magazine, I guess. Anyway, Elliott would join a Husker defensive staff that currently includes no one under age 50 other than the departure of Mark Banker and Stewart last month. It is believed that Elliott would take over coaching safeties, the position that he coached. I can't find the page. He coached at page 2. I gotta find page. Do you have a page 3 over there, Bill?
I'm sorry.
There's page 3. Now we have to find Elliott. There we go. Anyway, it starts in the article on page 1, and it's believed that Elliott would take over coaching safeties, the position that he coached at Notre Dame in the year 2012 and 13 when Diaco was a Fighting Irish defensive coordinator. Elliott's work with Diaco at both Notre Dame and Iowa is part of his extensive experience at Midwestern schools. Before coming to Notre Dame in 2012, Elliott made previous stops at Iowa State and Kansas State, Iowa, Ball State, and Kent State. Elliott also has held spots at San Diego State and North Carolina. In Iowa, Elliott was defensive coordinator when Diaco was a graduate assistant in 1996 and 97, and secondary coach when Diaco was playing linebacker for the Hawkeyes. Elliott was in Lincoln on Tuesday to meet with Nebraska head coach Mike Riley, according to a source. Riley had first interviewed former Husker safety Daniel Bullocks last week for the staff opening, but it's not known who else was involved. Elliott is the son of Bump Elliott, who preceded Bo Schembechler as head coach at Michigan, and then was a longtime athletic director at Iowa. And Uncle Pete Elliott was Nebraska's head coach for one season back in 1956. In 2013 interview with Sports Illustrated, Elliott said, "One thing I learned, when you get sick or hurt or whatever adversity that happens to you, if you stop fighting, you have no chance. This world will not stop and wait for you." Elliott last month applauded Nebraska's hiring of Diaco, who left Notre Dame to become head coach at Connecticut. Bob wants to compete at the highest level, and Nebraska gives him a chance to do that with their great tradition and where they're at, according to Elliott. So,
in golf, Ryder Cup captain Jim Furyk is tweaking the U.S. point system to put more value on winning PGA Tour events than high finishes in the majors. Furyk also said the last of his 4 captains' picks would be made after the BMW Championship in 2018, instead of a last-minute decision after the Tour Championship before the Americans leave for Paris. And in football, the Los Angeles Rams finalized the new head coach Sean McVay's coaching staff of 18 assistants Wednesday, including offensive coordinator Matt LaFleur. The 31-year-old McVay had already announced the hiring of NFL veteran Wade Phillips as his defensive coordinator and the retention of special teams coordinator John Fassel, who has spent the past 5 years with the Rams. The New York Jets hired Jeremy Bates as their quarterback's coach. One of the 4 assistants Todd Bowles added to his staff The Cleveland Browns have hired former Buffalo assistant David Lee as their quarterbacks coach. The Green Bay Packers released cornerback Sam Shields, who was never cleared from the concussion protocol after getting hurt in the season opener. And that's sports from the Journal Star. And this is Bill Everhart saying, well, it looks like we're done here.
Yeah, 12 o'clock noon again. Going to be reading with you good people out in Nebraska land and the Midlands. And don't worry, it'll get warmer. Well, maybe by next Thursday, who knows?
That's a promise.
Y'all take care of yourselves and be well and enjoy the rest of the week. Talk to you next time.
Yes, okay.
And thank you, gentlemen, very, very much. Thank you, Bill Everhart. Thank you, Jack Gibbs, for coming in and spending your time